Hello, my name's Max Glaskin. I'm the author of a book called Cycling Science. I'm a journalist and I write about cycling and I write about science and where the two come together. I'm here at Beyond Borders through stroke of good fortune because Beyond Borders seems to like to start each day with a cycle ride. And so I was invited to lead a cycling science ride where people who come to the festival join me on a bicycle ride, which isn't very long, isn't very arduous, but we stop en route and we do demonstrations and experiments. And some of the delegates are actually guinea pigs on bicycles, and they have to go through not as ignominy, but they have to go through the scientific process of trying to find out, well, you can see how a bicycle works, but what we're trying to find out on these rides is why a bicycle works. For 32 years I've been writing about cycling, and for 30 years I've been writing about science, quite separately. It was 5 years ago someone said, hey, why don't you write about cycling and science together? I wish I'd thought of that. Somebody else's great idea. So I did. I started researching it. I started finding out there's an enormous amount of studies going into how science makes cycling better. The physics, the physiology, the aerodynamics, materials science. There's so many areas where scientists are looking at cycling to improve it, to make better use of, to turn out better bikes and to make better cyclists. And that's a great thing, because cycling is such a democratic form of transport, and it's a great leveller. It was originally in the 19th century a great leveller for people who couldn't afford to keep horses, didn't have space to keep horses even, and when the first bicycles came along it was a great emancipator for women as well. It's a force for good, not just democratically but environmentally as well, because there's no emissions. There are no emissions from bicycles. Okay, during the manufacturing there's some toll on resources, and it produces better health as well. For example, if you cycle regularly and if you're a woman, it increases your lifespan by about 2 years. And if you're a bloke, if you're a man, it increases your lifespan by almost 4 years. That's because men die younger anyway than women. So all in all, cycling is a fantastic thing, and anything that does, anything that comes along to improve cycling, anything scientific, is worth talking about, investigating. But lots of people don't understand how cycling works, how we can balance on two very thin wheels in a straight line and not fall over so much. So we look at that as well. There are thousands of things I've learned over the last 5 years when I've really got into it. The most surprising thing to me was that nobody really knew the physics of a bicycle. For 150 years, nobody understood why a bicycle stands up, why it's self-stable. You give a bicycle a push and it rolls along without falling over until it slows down, and then it wobbles and tips. But until then, why would this very narrow thing, which you'd think just tip over, why does it stay upright? And since 1899, the first person came along and thought that they'd solved it. And everybody thought, yes, they've got the answer. They thought it was the gyroscopic motion of the wheels, gyroscopic forces. But then in 1970, somebody else came along and refined it and said, oh no, there's a bit more to it. But actually, nobody really solved it until 5 years ago. So, and even then, their solution is a very complex equation with 23 different terms in it and 9 sets of brackets. So it's not a simple thing. Cycling is simple, but to explain some of the science behind it is really complex. I'm not going to try and explain that to you, and I couldn't calculate it, but there's lots of things like that. Is it worth wearing a helmet? If you're interested in safety, actually what they've just discovered, they've thought about for a while, but there have been some great experiments showing that if you wear a bicycle helmet, you ride more dangerously. So you've got to decide, do you want primary safety, not wear a helmet and just ride safely? Or do you want secondary safety system, a helmet, ride a bit more dangerously, but your head's got a bit more protection? It's a difficult conundrum. Well, I knew very little about Beyond Borders before I got this wonderful invitation, and I think it is an amazing event. I'm staggered. I thought it was going to be people just trying to sell their books, and they're not. They're not allowed to just do that. Some of the books you really want to buy afterwards, after seeing them talk about the complex issues. I'm very impressed with the caliber of the people and what they're trying to do. They're doing jobs I didn't even realize existed in many cases, trying to resolve conflict. I mean, that's such a wonderful dedication, a way to spend your life, and it just makes me feel very humble. And I think they've got tremendous resources, and they deserve the support and encouragement which clearly Beyond Borders gives them, because it can only make the world better.